The economic turmoil is expanding. Hey, everybody, you're watching Bull, Boom, Bear, Bust. We have a lot of news to get into. And I say that pretty much every report because there is a lot of news. But the news I have today, it's almost shocking. I mean, I think every day there's some kind of shocking information coming out about the economy. The whole scenario with the way the economy's even operated is crazy. But just the news today, multiple people getting capped. Am I allowed to say the word shoot? Anyways, I just said it. Multiple people getting capped at Walmart in one day. I'm talking pop. Yeah. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the starvation warnings. I'm not even joking, folks. People in my last video thought I was making it up. And I'll tell you what they said later in this report, what they said about me. You might laugh. A lot of you that have been on this channel might laugh about that. Bank of America warning people that their money may be taken. That's right. Customers with money in accounts, they may be taking the money, folks. I'm not even joking about that. I wish I was. What else do we have on tap here? We've got people planning on coloring potatoes because eggs are so expensive. We're talking about Easter, coloring the eggs. I'm not even joking. We'll get into that. We've got a bit of a surprise in the housing market. We're going to get into some real estate housing bubble news and what's happening with inventory. I think some of you looking for lower home prices may be surprised at what just happened. Let's go ahead and get into it, starting right here. We've got the dollar tumbling, folks, to the lowest level since October. We're talking about a 6-month low in the dollar. Let's go ahead and pull up a year-to-date chart here for the US dollar index. And we're looking at a very pretty steady decline there, a downward trend for sure. And of course, this is natural with all the money that they're still pumping into the economy. And people thought that these cuts and these layoffs and these getting rid of a lot of these agencies, they thought that was going to stop the spending. Well, the debt accumulation by this country, by the United States, is actually accelerating. So it's not only continuing to go up and not dropping, it's accelerating. So something fishy's happening. We're being told a lot of untruths, in my opinion. And look, people, when I come out and I'm critical of the economy and what's happening now, people now more often now are starting to call me a left-winger. But when I criticized the economic actions back with the previous administration, I was called a right-winger, right? So some of these people are wacky. I mean, I had a couple people actually just read the headline of my last video and they unsubscribed just because of what I said in the headline. I said they were hunger warnings. But if they would have watched the video, they would have seen that I didn't say that there was a warning. I didn't make that up. It was actually a news article, and there were real warnings that there were going to be hunger because there's massive cuts right now happening with the food banks, right? So back to this dollar index anyway. We'll get into that more, the whole hunger thing. We'll get into that later in this report. But yeah, 6-month low in the dollar, folks. So multiple inflationary forces. We have the declining dollar by itself is inflationary, right? And it's also a tax, just like the tariffs. It's really a tax because people are paying more. Some people say, no, it's not a tax. You can't call it that. If you're paying more, folks, pick your name. You're paying more. So it's simple. It's essentially similar to a tax, right? Whatever you want to call it. You're paying higher cost. Bottom line, price levels are going to be going higher. Now, when a lot of people look at this dollar index, they say, well, it's not crashing, it's not collapsing, because when you look at a long-term chart, it's actually not. It's still pretty strong. But this is compared to other currencies around the world, which are also basically fiat currencies, right? So compared to other funny money fiat currencies, the dollar is holding up very strong. Now, it did spike at the beginning of the year with the new hope, the new administration. But when you look at what the dollar buys, folks, it's buying less and less. And look at the price of gold. I mean, gold is skyrocketing here. Today we're at 3,122 as I'm recording this. And people that hedged way back at 1,500 when we first started talking about gold, you've doubled your money, folks. So it may not be a 100% gain overnight, but certainly if you bought and held, you're doing very well right now with these metals. All right, and let's go back to, I think when I first started this channel, 2018, 2019, I can't remember exactly. Gold was in the $1,300 range. So you more than doubled your money, folks. That's outperforming the housing market. That's outperforming the stock market, right? So people laughed at the metalheads or the gold bugs, whatever you want to call them, us, and now we've outperformed most of the other investments that a lot of people get into. All right, moving on here, folks. This is another shocker, maybe not a shocker. We've got layoffs now in the military. Army planners are weighing force reductions of up to 90,000 active duty soldiers. So even the military jobs aren't safe. I mean, do you call these layoffs? What do you call them? They're calling them force reductions of up to 90,000. I've never even heard of layoffs in the military. And it goes on here. The potential cuts would mark one of the most dramatic force reductions in years as military planners aim to reshape the Army from a blunt conventional force into what they hope could be more agile, specialized instrument better suited for future conflicts. The move comes after Defense Secretary Hegseth directed the Pentagon to come up with plans to cut 8% from the budget. So these budget cuts, there's no safe place if you're federally employed or if you're even in the military, folks. There's no safe place against these cuts. All right, we'll get into the Bank of America news here next, but first, look at this, folks. Sign of the times, seasonal news here with Easter around the corner. Easter eggs are so expensive, Americans are dying potatoes. With costs high and supply short, people are getting creative with Easter egg traditions. Are any of you on this channel coloring potatoes? Please let me know. If you're an adult without children, I'm kind of worried about you if you're doing this. But maybe you or your children coloring potatoes. Please let me know down in the comments. For John Young, the fourth generation to work at Young Jersey Dairy in Yellow Springs, Ohio, Easter means lots and lots of eggs. In years past, on the week leading up to the holiday, the team at his family-owned farm and amusement park buys 10,000 eggs for their annual Easter egg hunt. And then they baked in standing ovens. It's much quicker than boiling that many. Well, that's a lot of wasted eggs, folks. For Easter, think about that. We're wasting these eggs. How many kids actually eat the eggs after they find them? Or what if they don't find them? All right. I remember when I was a kid, sometimes in the summer, we'd find an egg that we missed, or even in the fall, we'd find an egg that we missed and it would be all rotten. Anyways, Mr. Young and his family began mulling the event, which is usually attended by more than 2,000 people. The state of the egg market in the United States made them wonder if the hunt still made sense. So there you go, folks. Tragedy with canceled Easter egg hunts. Who thought that this would happen, folks? This is tragedy. And it goes on here, folks, but here we go. The Easter egg potatoes, Easter potatoes, folks. I can't really tell the difference. They're not as round, but close enough. I mean, the kids won't care, will they? And that just reminds me how wasteful the United States is. We have countries out there where people barely have anything to eat. And here we're coloring Easter eggs, hiding them out in the yard or in a field, and then letting some of them rot. But other countries don't even have anything to eat in many parts of the world, unfortunately. It's crazy when you think about it. All right, next, let's get into this news about Bank of America. Bank of America is warning it may cancel accounts that aren't active, and they're not going to send a check out to the account holder. They're going to take the money, folks. Now, this has happened before, and this is not anything new, but it is interesting that Bank of America is out there talking about this, right? So we see this amid a lot of branches are closing down because a lot of people are just doing digital, online banking, less people going to branches. So branches in some smaller communities and smaller towns are shutting down, right? The entire bank isn't imploding. The bank is still open. Like Bank of America, they're not going anywhere. But branches are closing down in some less populated areas. But people that have dormant accounts and haven't had a transaction, and I think they said about 3 years, could just get their money confiscated. And it's not like the bank's going to go ahead and send a check out to you. They're just going to take your money, folks. And this is something that's real. I'm not making it up here. Escheatment. They got the word cheat in there, right? That's a fitting word, right? Escheatment occurs when a financial institution, after a period of inactivity, typically 3 to 5 years, transfers unclaimed property to the state, which then becomes the custodial holder of the asset, right? So there's another term also, not to get mixed up or confused with. It's called encashment. And this is when they basically confiscate your money because of levies on you, like fees. Also, if IRS wants to take their money from you, they can out of the bank. Other things like that. So bottom line is, how many people are out there just with their bank, just with their money just sitting in the bank, right? Not active and not even realizing that their money can get taken and sent to the state, basically. A lot of people, I think, do that because so many people aren't banking at the local branch and they're just banking online. But I'm hoping that even if you have an online transaction, they'll consider that a transaction. They'll consider that being active. But there are people that just park their money in their bank, and with these savings account now that may yield a few percentage, maybe 4 or 5 APY if you're lucky. The people that just leave their money parked in the bank, and there are people out there that do that, need to be very cautious, though, that their money just doesn't disappear at the hands of the bank. All right, people, the housing bubble. Moving on to real estate here, if I can talk today. New listings just surged onto the market, and we're starting to see a rise in inventory, and we're approaching pre-2020 levels, pre-pandemic levels. Remember when the pandemic hit, inventory dropped because of the big demand and all the insanity with the housing market and the demand at that time. Well, actually, we're just seeing a year-over-year increase now, over 30% year-over-year. So that's very, very significant, 30% year-over-year. And let's look at a chart here to see where we're at now for housing inventory. And let's start off here with a 1-year chart, people. And we look all the way to the right side here. We see as of March, 892,000 listings. And you go back to March of last year, it was 694,000 listings. So very significant year-over-year increase of about 30%. And when you zoom out a little bit, you can see that we are near where we were in 2020. We were at 937,000. Now we're at 892. Now it did spike up last winter to 952. And that typically happens every winter with the slower buying season. The inventory spikes up. So now, with this level being up where it is from the previous year, which was there in March, if you're looking at my cursor, I think we're going to see this fall and winter exceeding where we were prior to 2020, maybe going back to where it was in 2019. So for those of you sitting on the sidelines, waiting for a buying opportunity in this housing market, which is insane, now may be a turning point. I'm not predicting a crash. I've said here many times I don't see a housing market crash because the way the banks are basically being propped up. There's probably never going to be a crash as long as they keep propping up the banks the way they are. But this could be a turning point, and maybe we'll start seeing some declining prices around the corner. And something that's very interesting we're seeing here lately with the push for affordable housing, there's talks about taking a lot of federal land and using it for development and new construction. We also see what's happening in Los Angeles. We've got LA Housing Authority turning luxury Woodland Hills apartments into affordable housing, folks. So take a look at some of these apartments. And this was a building that's a 335 unit complex acquired by the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles. And they're turning it into a mixed income property while retaining the luxury amenities. Take a look at this. Let me just show you a picture. Look at the inside of this apartment. This is going to be affordable housing. Look at this. This looks like a place that like a movie star would live in. And it's going to be affordable housing. It's still probably going to be unaffordable for most people, but compared to non-affordable housing in Los Angeles, it's maybe going to be a little bit cheaper there. Quote, "It's really important for us to create housing opportunities and open up access to neighborhoods that are stable," the housing authority chief came out and said. Under the plan, about a third of the units will be reserved for low-income households defined as those making 80% or less of the area median income. The remaining will be set aside for middle-income households making up to 150% of the median income. And it goes on here, rent will vary depending on income, but for a household of 3 in the lowest of the low-income branch, a 2-bedroom will cost a maximum of $936 a month. That's pretty good for a 2-bedroom. A few $1,000s below current levels. Wow. So there's going to be people lining up for this. $936 for a 2-bedroom. Will it look like this? Who knows? Maybe the other units aren't as nice as that. And just real quick before we move on here, got the walk-in closet. You got the stacked washer and dryer. What else we got here? Got a pool outside there. So pretty good for $9 something a month. And one of the sad parts of all this is that without the city stepping in and acquiring these properties, how much less affordable housing would there be? How many more people would be living with their parents, sleeping in their cars, sleeping in their tents, sleeping in their campers, sleeping in their RVs, right? So pretty interesting. All right, moving on here. Some more housing news, folks, out of Oregon. Oregon House passes a bill allowing landlords to evict squatters. Isn't it just mind-boggling that we had to pass a bill, not we, but Oregon had to pass a bill to evict squatters? You would think that squatters should be evicted no matter what without having to pass a bill. But looks like they finally got around to it and people were squatting. And it's kind of surprising when you see some of these houses. Take a look here up in Oregon. The house on the thumbnail actually had no roof. So I guess they'll get the squatters out of there and they will hopefully fix the home and either sell it or rent it out to somebody. And let's go ahead and take a brief listen here.
An Oregon woman says she was forced to pay a woman to leave her property. She says the woman was protected by the state's squatters' rights laws.
A bipartisan effort is underway in Salem to allow property owners to evict squatters.
Squatters' rights. There shouldn't be any such thing.
With a 24-hour notice. K2's Vasily Varlamos is live in Salem. Vasily, it all started with a generous gesture from the family.
Yes, Jennifer Chamberlain was in the process of selling her Salem home when she was asked to house a homeless woman in her shed for a short time. When she asked the woman to leave, the woman didn't, which set off a chain of challenges for the Chamberlain family.
So you let somebody that's homeless sleep in your shed or stay in your house, then you tell them to leave and they won't do it. So people don't take kindness like they should, right? They take it for granted.
Jennifer and John Chamberlain moved to Eastern Oregon so John could lead his own church. Their adopted son, helping manage the property, asked to house a woman in their shed for a short period of time.
My son was trying to do a nice thing for a woman that we thought was homeless.
With the woman refusing to leave after being asked several times, Jennifer called the police.
They said there's nothing we can do because the property is the property. She's already been living on the property. She lives on the property. I have since been told by an attorney that that's not true. But we didn't know anything.
The woman eventually moved from the shed to the home when the shed was deemed uninhabitable by city officials. Jennifer said she learned this was not the first time the woman had done this.
She knew every law. She knew every code. She knew every step of the way. When I said, you can't stay here forever, the court's going to tell you to move out, she said, but will they?
Being hundreds of miles away from Salem, the Chamberlains eventually paid the woman $2,500 to leave the property, a bill unanimously passing the
Had to pay her $2,500 to leave the property.
Oregon
Wow.
House of Representatives Thursday would allow property owners to evict a squatter with a 24-hour notice. It explicitly adds squatting to the list of situations considered unlawful holding by force under eviction law, expediting the eviction process. When asked about advice for others in a similar situation, Jennifer says hire an attorney right away.
Get an attorney. Don't do what everybody says to do.
Hey, you have to hire an attorney. That's going to cost you more than $2,500, sadly. All right, folks, let's move on here to what's happened at these Wal-Marts. This was in the same day. We have a investigation in Albuquerque, New Mexico about a shooting in Wal-Mart. One person hospitalized. Tulsa Walmart the same day, shots fired inside the Walmart. One was in the parking lot. One was inside a Walmart. In one case, a off-duty police officer had to stop one of the suspects. Just a couple days prior, we had same thing happened at a Walmart in Lancaster. I believe that's California or Pennsylvania, one or the other. One day ago, South Carolina Walmart. More shootings, folks. So it looks like the gangs are moving in to Walmart. I mean, the cheapest place to buy stuff, and of course you're going to have the trying to think of the word here, the danger of the type of people that are going to be shopping at these places. All right, people, I'm going to get up out of here in just a minute or two. One more thing, though. People saying that I'm negative or doom and gloom. Look at this. Rising odds, asteroid that threatened to hit Earth will hit the moon, folks. So we've got warnings out there that the moon is going to get smashed up by an asteroid. Will it happen? Of course not. Maybe in 1,000 years. I'm not predicting doom and gloom. This is just news, people. Let me know what you think about this down in comments. What do you think about the squatter? What do you think about the year-over-year rise in housing inventory? 30% rise. In this fall and winter, we could surpass what we saw prior to 2020. Is this a turning point in the housing market? Bank of America taking money. Shocker, not a shocker. What do you think about that? The military layoffs, the potato Easter with the painted potatoes, folks. It's insane. I'm going to get up out of here, everybody. Thanks for watching. As always, keep stacking. Like to hear from you down in comments. Make sure you subscribe. Keep this channel alive. Please. Thank you very much, everybody. Peace. Bye for now.